So welcome our special guest today from the FBI El Paso, but you'll notice they're not agents. We're going to have them introduce themselves.
Good morning. I'm Melissa Dominquez. I have actually been an intelligence analyst with FBIElPaso my entire career, and I will be finishing 20 years of service this November 2023.
Good morning. My name is Christiaan, Renee, and I am a supervisory intelligence analyst here at FBIElPaso. And I've been in for at least 12, 13 years now. And I supervise criminal programs, so a lot of our reactionary programs with regard to violent incident crimes and also some of our complex financial crimes, which we'll touch on here in a little bit with regard to how it impacts and applies to the intel world. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm always excited about having those who work for the FBI who aren't agents. So that way we can get the community kind of interested in understanding that there are other positions that they too can strive for. So we're going to get right to it. This is one of the areas with the FBI that I've always wanted to know more about. And I thank you for being here for answering our inquiries today.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. So what types of intelligence jobs are available within the FBI, and what are the requirements for these positions?
I'll start with the requirements. The requirements, if you want to come in at a GS7, then you would need to have a bachelor's degree. If you come in with a master's degree, you can begin, your starting point can be a GS9. So that's the pay scale that you would come into. The jobs that you can potentially work for within FBI as far as intelligence, we have three areas actually. You can be strategic, you can be tactical, and then you can also focus on the threat. And so that would mean you would be embedded with the squad agents as well. So beyond that, there are many different programs that you can actually support. So we could get into that later if you like.
And then I was just going to add to that too, as far as there's primarily two positions. So that like Mel and myself, we both start out as intelligence analysts, but there's also a staff operations specialist, which focuses more on the tactical side, whereas the intelligence analysts are more involved in the strategic role. And those are your two primary routes, but there is a lot of overlap that we'll probably touch on here in the next short few minutes or so.
Okay, thank you. Well, can you describe the typical day-to-day responsibilities of an FBI intelligence analyst, or is it operative, or how do you say
that? That's right.
It's an intelligence analyst, and every day we are dependent on information that comes in. Information can come in from various sources. It can come in from what the agents collect. It can be from partner agencies. It can be from our liaisons in the community. And so the day begins with seeing what information we've collected and to see if that information is complete, accurate, and if it can be further disseminated for somebody else's use. So that begins our day.
Okay. So how does the FBI gather and analyze intelligence, and what tools and technologies are used to support the process?
Sure, I can take that one. So like Mel was saying, we gather this information, and a lot of it's publicly available information, which we refer to as open source. Then, of course, some of that what we like to call added value is bringing in our classified databases. So putting that together, we can put this intel picture, which gives us an idea of what it is, what type of threats that we're looking at, what's involved, what actors or players, if you will, are involved with regard to committing some of those crimes. And the FBI is broken up into two areas. So we have a national security branch side and then a criminal branch side. And it breaks down further than that. But without getting into that, that's the overall approach. And exploiting those databases to find out the information that we need with regard to certain background and criminal histories, we can start to put, as they say, that puzzle piece together to be able to connect the dots and paint that picture, a mosaic, if you will, the whether it's a crime scene or a bigger threat picture, to find out who's involved, to go and basically capture the help the agents, the operations side catch those bad guys.
Okay, thank you. So, how does the FBI collaborate with other agencies and partners in the intelligence community, both domestically and internationally?
Here in El Paso, if I may,
Yeah, go right ahead.
we have the unique characteristic that we're right on the border. So an international liaison would be the country of Mexico, or maybe some agencies from the country of Mexico. And so we have a border liaison officer, for example. And we also have a lot of partner relationships with other agencies that are federal that also have relationships with the country of Mexico. And so together we work to come up with what it is that we need. What are the questions we need to answer relative to the international focus? As far as the national focus, there are multiple databases at the federal level that we can have access to. There are agencies that are our partners that are at the federal level, but we can't forget our state agencies, state of Texas, for example, Texas Department of Public Safety. And then we have all our local agencies that we also go to for assistance. Now, combined together with this knowledge, not one agency knows everything. And so we go to the agency that has the information that's needed most, or their area of expertise. And so then we can come up with what is needed. And that's how we begin. In addition, we liaison with the community. And so we identify those private sector partners, and our executive management goes out and meets with them, and they talk to us about what they think about, and we let them know what we can do. And so we form this partnership in the event that something were to occur. Everyone kind of knows what it is that we're going to do.
If I could just add a little bit to that, with regard to, I was a history major here at UTEP locally, and so I love to look at things from historical context. And with regard to sharing information, if we go back to 9/11, post 9/11, all intel agencies kind of, I was going to say slap in the hand, but basically got in trouble because we had all these stovepipes where everybody had all this information and they were sharing great between each other, but they weren't sharing across. And so that's one of the findings that came out during the 9/11 Commission report. And so I bring that up to say, now fast forwarding to today, one of the vehicles for us sharing and speaking with each other as far as the U.S. intelligence community goes is through our IIRs, or our intelligence information reports. And that's key, because it gets the Office of Director of National Intelligence, who now oversees all the intel community here in the United States. That vehicle, that mechanism, those IIRs help or encourage, promote us speaking to each other to avoid another disaster like that occurring again.
Okay, I think that's important for the community to know, that there is a partnership when it comes to
Yes.
the different agencies or entities, because I think there's a myth that none of you share information, and so you're trying to strengthen that. So I think that's really good for the community to know.
Exactly.
Okay. So what are the most important skills and qualities for success in intelligence jobs, and how can applicants demonstrate these during the hiring process?
Well, I'm going to go with the plain and simple, and you need to be curious. You need to be curious. You need to want to find out the why. And we have this phrase that we use a lot in intelligence, and you'll hear it if you're applying. Critical thinking. What is that? Critical thinking has to do with you being able to tell the difference between something that is legitimate and something that is illegitimate. You need to be able to tell whether something is okay or is something going towards a crime. You need to make sure that what you're looking at is something you're supposed to do. You should be able to interpret policy and make sure that you're staying within the lines of what your position affords you to do, gives you the authority to do. And critical thinking is all about that. And then the other thing that I think is super important that I didn't realize, your writing skills have really got to be there.
Okay.
Yep.
So writing skills, that's something I guess you wouldn't think about. I think that you would think that it comes naturally, but then again, I guess you guys kind of improve upon it too as you go along.
Absolutely. We even have this collateral duty for grammar police, and it's called a peer review team. And we check the products that are written to make sure that they're according to standard as adhered to by the FBI.
I would definitely add to, and I don't know if we're going to touch on this later, but just so that we don't miss it, there is a big, well, what I tend to experience when a lot of people ask me about like, oh, how can I get into the FBI, and what is it that's going to help get me to that point so that I'm ready when I get that opportunity. And the one thing I get all the time is like, I'm doing criminal justice, or I'm going to go into criminal justice to do it, and that's really kind of, it seems counterintuitive. It's like, wow, like, I thought criminal justice would be the one that get me there, and it's not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just going back to what Mel was saying, is those critical thinking skills are key, and it's really, again, not just history, but your English, your there. I think UTEP still has a international intelligence and national security studies program, and many of those are throughout the country, and it's being able to solving puzzles and taking all this data and looking at it and being objective about it, because we all have bias built in. As much as we can say like, hey, no, I'm just going to look at this completely objectively and not going to put a filter on it. It's inherent within all of us, and being able to train yourself. Again, I'm going to throw out I remember in my history classes here at UTEP, like, it's hard to go back, put yourself in history, look when you're reading documents and records, and not think with today's modern biases and mindset, because they thought differently back then. And it's the same thing or it's similar when looking at raw information, which we want to turn into intelligence, because we got to look at that very objectively. And thinking is actually harder than what it's a lot harder. It's easier said than done, because there's a lot that goes into it. And with regard to, like Mel was saying, with that peer review team process, writing, briefing, and reviewing all that stuff to make sure that what we're putting out there is clear. And it's a different writing style. It's very different from college. You need those skills. Once you come to the FBI, you learn that you just get that bottom line up front, because people are super busy, and you just want to get the core thing that those decision makers need to make right there at the top, so they can make a decision in a short amount of time if need be, especially with regard to the tactical side of things.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Yes, and I am going to get to that point on people who are interested in becoming intelligence analysts and what's required. So I definitely want to come back to that.
Okay, great.
So how does the FBI train and develop personnel, and what opportunities are there for career advancement?
Do you want me to take that one? Or?
I can start and you can add.
Okay, go right ahead. No.
Coming in, we have a lot of training with regard to tools, certain techniques that we use. We've got a lot of policy, a lot of procedure that shows you how it is that what you're going to be doing will be an acceptable form, that it will be what flies, let's say, in our area of employment. In addition, we have Quantico. We have training at Quantico where if you want to enhance certain skills, Christiaan was talking about briefing, about writing, about all these other things, and there's week-long classes where you can focus on items such as that. And then there's also collateral duty where from where you're working, you can try. Sometimes it's competitive, sometimes it's not competitive. You can just walk right in and start doing a job. For example, a photographer for the evidence response team, or somebody who works communications in support of the SWAT team. I, deathly afraid of flying, was able to fly in a very small plane for some of the things that we do in support of our investigations. And I was able to do all of that with in that lies the training you need to be able to do that job well. And so we have tours of duty where you can go to headquarters, you can go globally to learn about other places that we are providing a service. And also, then I'll let you go to career path because then you can promote into the higher grades and become my supervisor. You want to talk about the supervisor?
Sure, I'll touch on the supervisor bit. Just for those who might have a question though with regard to Quantico, so the Marine base over at Quantico in Virginia, that is where, as I mentioned before, there's really two main paths, if you will, for tactical, which would be the staff operations specialist and then the intelligence analyst, as we've already stated. And those are roughly about 4 to 5 weeks of training on the Marine base there at Quantico for the staff operations specialist, about 10 weeks for the intelligence
It's 12
analyst.
now.
Oh, thank you. So it's up to it's 12 weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
And just to caveat that, the intelligence analyst route, they sign a mobility agreement, if you will, like the agents. So you pick your top 50 field offices, and then you'll have the opportunity to go wherever it is that they choose to send you. But hopefully, they have a whole, I'm kind of a Harry Potter fan too, a sorting hat, if you will, and you'll get sent to where they need you, but they try to accommodate for those areas, ranked from 1 to 50. As far as the supervisor position, that is more of an administrative route that you can. Looking at the intelligence analyst position, you can go subject matter expert, or you also have the option of going supervisory. I went supervisory, and it puts me closer working with executive management. We have our SAC here in El Paso. SAC stands for Special Agent in Charge. And so he has assistants that help him. And so we work closely with them, giving them the information that they need for them to make those big level decisions, being in touch with headquarters in Washington, D.C., as well as our local agencies and their chiefs here in El Paso as well. And then at the same time, I'm looking out for my team that is comprised of both positions, the Intel Analyst and the SOS, and I'm reviewing their writing. We're holding meetings on a regular basis. And so those are kind of the roles and responsibilities with me, just touching real briefly, as far as looking out for my team, protecting them, promoting the work that they're doing, and highlighting their products that they're writing for executive management and for the greater Intel community and other FBI partners as appropriate. And so it's a lot, but it's a fun job to do for both, depending on what it is that your interest takes you to.
Okay, thank you. Wow, that's a lot. I mean, I wouldn't have expected so much. But so what are some of the biggest challenges, if any, facing the FBI in the field of intelligence today, and how is the agency addressing these challenges, if any?
Oh, there's some, definitely some.
I thought of this question, and I think that it is important for us to maintain public trust. I think that there's a challenge in that today, and so I am proud that when we're not infallible. We are not perfect, and so when mistakes are made, we have our director come out, explain transparently what it is that's occurred, and what we're going to do now to fix those things, and then we go ahead and implement that. And I'm proud to say that of the things that have occurred, that we have these mechanisms so that we can shape our policy based on how times are changing. And so I know that first and foremost is the maintaining of the public trust is what I think.
And then, so that definitely well said. On adding to, as far as some of the intel and operational challenges that we face as with regard to the work, keeping up with Mel mentioned these are changing, times are changing rapidly. So with regard to technology, we have to catch up because sometimes these threat actors, as we call them, they're learning. For example, telephones. A lot of people don't communicate using telephones anymore. They're using apps on their phones, and so keeping up with new ways of different ways of communication now, keeping up with how because the bad guys know how to change their tune really quickly, and so we got to make sure that we're being proactive as opposed to reactive.
Correct.
And so those are some of the challenges, and that's where I believe our top three are still, we have espionage, cyber, and counterterrorism. And so in those three areas, the bad guys are always working quickly. And so we want to make sure that we're doing our best to keep that edge when it comes to technology and what their techniques are, how it is that they're, when we figure something out and they're going to quickly try and figure something else out to kind of circumvent and get away from law enforcement ways of capture, if you will.
Okay. And since you mentioned that, and I know I probably didn't preface this before, when it comes to, keeping up with technology, and if you can't answer, I understand, but how does artificial intelligence play a part in that? Is that part of what you do also? Like, is that like in your field?
That is an advanced technology that does come into our mission. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say at this classification.
Okay. Okay, I understand that.
Unless you have something more general.
So there is, I can touch lightly on what's already out publicly available, and you can go into some of these science journals and articles, and there are AI bots out there now. And for example, you can go on YouTube and find how a lot of, especially celebrities or individuals in high profile places, there's a video of them, and just like we're doing this video right now, and they're talking and saying these things, and it never happened. But yet with these AI bots and these new ways for content to be created, and now with the advancement of artificial intelligence, that it's scary times. And so of course, and we're not of course the only country that's involved in AI. That's a big, Europe and China and all these other places are interested in developing, going after that, because that's kind of the new gold rush, if you will, if I can use an old term.
Yeah.
And the ability for them to advance and process things can probably be processed so quickly now. That is definitely something that not just FBI, but as a nation, that we're of course interested in making sure that we have our best folks working on to try and stay ahead, or at least keep up with that threat as it evolves.
Right. Okay. And I asked that because of course, I'm one of the ones who watch the FBI shows.
Right.
And I know it's not.
I wish we had a lot of the things they have in those FBI shows. It's not.
I'll
like
call
that,
my mom. She loves to watch all those shows.
Right. So I saw those. I was like, oh, I think that's weird. And I figured that's artificial intelligence, how they made one person seem like they were the ones communicating, but it actually was, that it wasn't even them. So it's kind of scary. So yeah, that's why I wanted to ask that question too, because I know that probably has a lot to do with some of what you all may have to encounter coming up too. So can you describe, if any, and I always give no, I can't really talk about that right now.
Right.
So I know you're probably going to say that, and I understand, but I'm going to ask anyway. Can you describe any recent or ongoing intelligence operations that the FBI has been involved in, and how the agency has worked to achieve its objective, particularly here on the border?
It's the first one we both don't jump at because.
And I understand. Trust me.
I can answer again very generally, and then Mel, feel free to chime in. But again, our approach is we have a national security branch and we have a criminal branch, and broken down within all of those, we work intel and operations. Our big focus is integration, making sure that we're integrating together to go after all of these variety of threats. With regard to, we look at our location here, of course, we want to make sure we're working and being as proactive as possible to try and avoid another, horrible Walmart type incident, or to try and avoid, for example, being here on the border. What's unique about El Paso is you got 2 countries and 3 states that all share a border that's within. I'm talking like I'm Italian right here. I use my hands. I do have some. I've got a lot of.
I'm holding them like this.
I was wondering.
But what's unique is that the beauty of El Paso is we have a great relationship with the community and with our law enforcement partners, and so we work together very well, addressing a lot of these current and ongoing operations. So of course we can't get into, but they, whether it's Customs and Border Protection, obviously Border Patrol, and our local police departments, El Paso PD and Sheriff's Office, and even Texas Rangers. I don't want to start naming because I'm feel bad about leaving someone out.
Inadvertently forget someone.
No, inadvertently forget someone. Yes, but we do work together very well. We have great support of the community, and that's one of the unique, I say, blessings of El Paso, is that we've always been a highly tolerant and accepting community, and it makes it easier for us to do our job because people are more generally open and willing to share to help us move those operations, those current investigations forward, because everybody here in general wants to look out for each other. And we try to do our best with regard to outreach and communicating with those that are also interested in keeping our community safe.
I want to add that something a lot of people don't know is El Paso County is the population dense area for our field office. We're the El Paso field office, and we're 17 counties in West Texas. We span all the way to Midland, Odessa, and then we head south into Presidio, and we share that border all along Mexico, up to that port of entry that's in Presidio. And so the relationships that we're talking about aren't just here in El Paso County. We promote that same zeal to understand, to know, to form these relationships at all the different locations that actually fall under our area of responsibility. And so I really want to promote that the relationship part, the partnership that we have with, whether it be law enforcement, whether it be private sector, the public is a huge part of our information providing a sector. It's not just about a special industry component that can help us out when we talk about changing ways that criminals are doing their crime. Sometimes if something is ongoing that we didn't know about at schools, for example, or if a certain group is now engaging in this or that, the public, through the mechanisms that we have for them to communicate with us, is just critical. And not just El Paso County, but all the way, shout out to Midland, Odessa, and shout out to Presidio. So
Thank you for explaining that too. And so for those who do ask me to always ask about El Paso on the border, that's all you're going to get. So, so how does the FBI balance the need for secrecy and confidentiality in its intelligence work with the need for transparency and accountability to the public?
I think that I touched a little bit about it, in that we are quick to let you know about our policy, about your civil rights. We are the guardians of our fourth part of, whether it be counterterrorism as our mission, counterintelligence, the next things after that, we have cyber after that. It is civil rights. And so we do protect your civil rights. We make sure that you're informed with regard to that. And so there's transparency there. And then at the same time, in protection of your civil rights, there's certain information that we cannot divulge. It's not just about the criminal, it's also about victims. Uh, and so there is consideration to what is being worked, what information we're dealing with, ages per se. Sometimes I think you have violent crimes against children as well.
Yes.
And so, we have those protections for children. And so the balance we maintain is by knowing our policy and knowing we swear to uphold the Constitution. We become very familiar with constitutional rights. At the same time, not everybody, again, knows everything. We have checks and balances, and we have internal attorneys, if you want to apply for that, that also help us out in discerning what it is that we can or cannot do.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that too. And I know we're winding up here, and I wanted to go back to what you said earlier about like those who may major in the criminal justice field when it comes to believing, hey, this is what's gonna help me become, an agent or an intelligence analyst. So, what advice would you give to someone interested in pursuing her career in FBI intelligence, and how can they best prepare themselves for this path?
Sure, I'll jump in. So my main thing is to pursue what you love. Don't worry so much about like, oh, I need to do this or this or this. I found I started to do that in college, and I think I'm one of the few that ended up with more hours in my business minor than my major in history. But I ended up, when you do what you love and you're good at it, and if you can be a team player and look for those areas where you're going to gain those critical thinking skills and develop that skill further, because it's really a lifelong process. That will make you that much more of, and it'll help you to be that much more prepared coming into it. Again, I can't emphasize enough the value that came from some of my those critical thinking courses, whether it was business administration or history or English. And then when I went for my master's in intelligence and national security studies, what was neat was then I was able to get all the background information, learning, who the father of intelligence was, how CIA was created, and who Sherman Kent, all these figures and individuals who were involved in, at least with regard to American intelligence and developing that, and how it contributed to these, a lot of these things are born out of, our past world wars and going to fight for our country. But even then, going back to Sun Tzu, Art of War, there's so many different elements and things to take a look at. And so that's what my point is do what you love when you go into school, and then as those opportunities come up, you can start fine tuning as you get, complete your undergrad. And if you're fortunate to go and get your master's degree, all those things will only help complement you. That being said, all that focus on education, the FBI looks for well-rounded individuals. They want to see, what other things have you done? Have you perhaps maybe volunteered or contributed to the community, or been involved in church activities, or been involved in sports activities? But they want to find a well-rounded individual, especially not just the intel side, but going for a special agent. When they train you and teach you how to take a life necessary to protect other lives, they want to know that that person has the maturity to be able to go out there and defend and make right decisions, a lot of times with very little preparation on a split-second notice. Being able to think and act on your feet, and while that might be more on the operations side, it does apply to the intelligence side as well, because we have to think and act quickly with regard to the information that we're bringing in to support those agents that are out there, risking their lives to help save the lives of our citizens in the community.
I wanted to add about, you said well-rounded persons. I came in late to the FBI. I'm not afraid to admit
We both did.
I came in at age 40. I'm born and raised here in El Paso. I went to UTEP, graduated from UTEP. I'm a marketing major. And so that is not typical of somebody that you would think, oh, they're going to be an intelligence analyst. I wound up with a statistical mathematics background and wound up working for the City of El Paso Police Department in their crime analysis unit doing crime statistics. And so my path is not what you would think. And then what I started noticing is I feel like I'm a natural educator. I was doing a lot of training in softwares for intelligence persons. And so I met people from FBI. And then I said, I want to do that too. And I found out what the requirements were back then. And I started working here. And as I did what I loved, you're absolutely right. As I did what I loved, you migrate to it. There is no way you cannot show your enthusiasm and your commitment to those things that you love doing. And so then you begin to invest in that. And so never feel that you're not someone who can.
Mhm.
Anyone can.
That's right.
Yes, you can. I did it atypically, and best career I've ever had. And if you're curious, if you don't like being bored, um, of course, I'm going to say we're the best agency there is. We have so many things you could potentially work, national security or criminal. And then within those, the different programs that we all support. Um, yes, you can. Yes, you can. And I encourage persons looking to get into this field is to excel academically. Excel academically in your 4-year degree. It is highly competitive to come into FBI. And then once you're within the process, is make sure that you are maintaining all the requirements that are necessary. Sometimes it could take a little bit of time to get hired. And then once you get hired, take advantage of everything FBI has to offer, from a global exposure to making a difference in your own community. I'm privileged to serve my community here in El Paso. And so just excel. Excel, know that everything you do, we want to see what impact you have, and onward.
I have to add something real quick because Mel, you triggered my memory with something. But of course, and we might include just for clarification. Of course, there's still polygraph test that's required,
Mhm.
as well as drug testing, like most federal jobs. But Mel had touched on something with regard to excelling, and there's two words: confidence
Mhm.
and humility. Confidence and
Mm.
humility, and never. And this is what she little neurons are firing in my brain. Never sell yourself short. Like never sell yourself or think, oh, that's I'm not FBI. I can't do that. I only substitute teach or work at Domino's. That was me. I substitute taught before. I worked at Domino's delivering pizzas, and now I'm a supervisory intelligence analyst. So don't ever sell yourself short, because the world will cut you down. Other people may cut you down. Never allow yourself to cut yourself down, because it's highly competitive out there. And if you believe in yourself and if you compete out there and you excel, like Mel was saying, you will succeed. And all the resources are there, especially nowadays, to be able to go for that. It's just a matter of you actually making the effort and putting in the what I call the midnight oil, the burning that extra, going the extra mile to get you there. And that will be noted. They will see that, and that will help you stand out from the rest of the crowd.
Can you tell we love our job?
Yeah, you'll never be bored. Never be bored. That's never a dull moment.
And we can't talk enough about it. So.
See, I'm like, okay, this is a whole TED Talk, motivational speech.
Well, thank you. It's been our pleasure. It's been great to be able to answer these questions, and we really appreciate it.
I appreciate you both for coming on here. But of course, before you go, what everyone would like to know, so I ask everyone this question: where is, both of you are born and raised in El Paso, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're from here, you know the area. What are some places that people who visit here have to visit before they leave the city?
Can I say Chico's Tacos?
My mom said Chico's Tacos. I'm gonna actually go with a restaurant. Two considerations. If you want ambiance, you do the Carlos and Mickey's. If you want good food, I've discovered this place within the past 6 months. It's Las Palmas, George Teeter and Vista del Sol. Their bean and cheese and jalapeno nachos come close to Moe's on Alameda. And if you're from El Paso, you're going to know. Ask around, but I think Las Palmas is not a miss when it comes to the taste of the food.
Well, I'll just say, if you love Mexican food, you can't go wrong no matter where you go in El Paso, because when I was overseas in Germany before, I definitely missed the Mexican food here in El Paso, because we really know how to make it well. As far as sites and places to visit, there's so much history here in El Paso. This is the old Wild West, and even our sister city, Las Cruces, down the way. I always recommend, going over there to the Double Eagle, La Posta. Great ambiance, neat little road trips to Old Masia. We have a lot of the missions here that are great to visit. Tons and tons of history.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an outdoors person and like to run up and down mountains, you've got Mount Cristo Rey, which is really neat, and it's right there. And you can literally, you got Mexico, United States, all the way through the state of Chihuahua, Texas, and New Mexico, all right there. It's a very unique. I've always felt very fortunate and blessed to be born and raised here in El Paso, because of the diversity here, and the opportunity we have to be able to interact. Literally, right when people come and visit El Paso, they're like, "Oh my gosh! Like I had no idea how close Juarez in Mexico was. I thought it was like, okay, we're gonna drive 20, 30 minutes and get. We're right there, literally all walking distance from some of even our homes."
Mm-hmm.
And I consider that a blessing to be able to have all those that cultural background with the country of Mexico right here, and to be able to share, and not to mention what it does for our economy, both ways, back and forth.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So for those of you who are from El Paso who haven't been out of the house, get out and visit some of the places that they're talking about too. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to know more about becoming an intelligence analyst with the FBI, or just for more information about FBI in El Paso?
I'll let you handle it.
Okay, sure. Well, I don't know if you all can, if it's posted, but we do have our on Twitter at FBIElPaso site, and then I'd like to promote also our new Spanish. Make sure I got it right here. Yeah, we just launched our new Spanish Twitter handle, and it's at me FBIElPaso, meaning MI, so not ME, the English version, but in Spanish at me
Me FBI.
Yeah. So you said it earlier. I don't know if you want to share in Spanish, the Spanish version.
Oh yeah, spelling it out now. Oh, MEFBIELPASO.
Oh, there you go. And so feel free to reach out to us at either of those, and we'd love to answer any questions. We do have a media representative, and she's always happy to answer any questions that the community might have. And so feel free to post those and send them to us, and we'd love to chat with you.
Well, thank you so much, both so much. This has been awesome. I can't tell Jeanette that this was actually one of my favorite shows, but I have to let her know. Sorry, Jeanette. I love this because, it's from a different perspective. And again, I promote heavily encouraging people to look for jobs in the FBI that doesn't require them to be an agent because
Right.
most people do think, and like I'm so glad you shared that how you entered, when you were 40. And then you with your major in something completely different than what people would expect. So that experience lets me know that some other people may listen to this and think that, yeah, I can possibly do this. So, and it's needed. So thank you for sharing. And we look forward to having you back.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.